So the external drivers, we know what they all are. There's no surprise here. The IoT, the IoE drives everything. Content delivery drives the rest that's left over, which isn't much. And it's all growing. Streaming media, interactivity, gaming, big data and analytics. There's not any field that isn't being disintermediated right now by this. So what does it look like for the data center? We're hurtling, and I think hurtling isn't an exaggeration, toward the software-defined data center. Software-defined networking is now very much in the minds of every operator. Software-defined storage and infrastructure on the IT stack, the north of the rack technology is being adopted at a rapid rate. The software on the south side of the rack, facilities management, DCIM, power management, thermal management, is at the point where it now can be converged and will be converged with north of the rack.
Let me show you just a couple of quick slides before I introduce our panel. This data, 63%, was the penetration that we found in a survey that we did in 2013 of cloud use. Now the sample population was 40% small businesses and 60% medium and large, going up to 1,000 employees. 2 years later, almost exactly 2 years later, November to October, November 2013, December 2013 to October of 2015, penetration rate's up to 70%. So that's a modest growth in adoption. Most of the growth is in larger businesses where use of cloud, at least in initial phases, is pretty well 100%. But interestingly, it's not that 5% growth in little companies that's driving the stats that you see in this chart. Chart's a little dense, but just to read it quickly, those gray bars show the increase, projected increase until 2020 in IT spending in Canada. It goes up by a compound annual growth rate, for those of you who can't calculate that in your head while you're sitting here, of 2.9%. About 2% of that is inflation. So actual growth in IT budgets above inflation is just under 1%. The blue bars represent spending on on-premise products. The gold bars, XaaS delivery to the back end. So the blue bar is servers, networking, storage, back-end software. The gold bars are the equivalent delivered as a service. And as you can see, and the blue line indicates the growth, on-prem spending is expected to shrink through this period of time. XaaS is expected to grow. So the answer to one of those questions is the big driver here is more effective use of cloud, not necessarily new adoption. This mid-30s growth rate that you see out to the right side on the gold bar is not, in fact, new little companies adopting cloud. It's larger companies figuring out how to use cloud more effectively throughout their infrastructure. And to take best advantage of the collective wisdom in the panel, I'd like to ask each of you to provide the folks in the room with one piece of advice that they should write down and post next to their desks as they move through the ongoing transition that was demonstrated in that slide with the bars and the lines from traditional to hybrid infrastructure. Matt, you're closest to me, so you get to go first on this.
Well, I think the one piece of advice I'd say is make sure that your IT organization understands what your business objectives are and create that alignment. Too many times IT serves IT and doesn't serve the business. That's the one critical thing that I would say to move the day forward.
And I think that's a great point. AJ?
I think I'll build off of his. I think cloud isn't the best solution for everything. And a lot of the times cloud isn't the right product, but in a good portion of the times it is. But make sure you're aligning your business requirements with your technology solution. And sometimes it's in-house, sometimes it's cloud, sometimes it's purpose-built.
Thanks. Roy?
So I got to take it from a slightly different perspective.
That makes sense. You're approaching it from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, I have two things. One is if you're willing to move to cloud, find something that's a quick win for your users, for your stakeholder community. So in our case, 3 years ago, we put everybody on Office 365, huge quick win, and relatively easy to do as a project. The second one is also give your team, your IT teams, some quick wins. Let them see the vision. As my colleagues here mentioned, it's important to have the IT team on board. And if you're going to be successful, you can only get through the full automation if you have them on board. So give them some quick wins, some things that they can be proud of.
Thanks, Stuart.
I think I'll add to what some of the comments made earlier and say, look, the thing to remember is a cloud solution is not, again, as I said before, one size fits all. It needs to be customized for your needs. It needs to solve one of the problems. We talked about sort of three things before. You got cost, you got speed, and you got agility, and you got solve my problem, get rid of all this stuff and make my life easier. Kind of what Roy talked about earlier. So there's not one solution for every problem. You need to customize your solution to solve the actual objective you're trying to get.
There's a lot of awareness in IoT and awareness of the benefits. That's probably not a surprise to most of you who are interested in this topic area. But one thing I would say is we did a little bit of survey work 2 years ago, and we found quite dramatically different results. As a matter of fact, we asked a simple yes-no question, are you aware of IoT? 87% of the respondents to that 600 respondent survey said no, and 13% were aware. So, this really, to me, signals, a rapidly evolving marketplace and opportunity for Canadian businesses. This time around, we didn't ask a simple yes-no question. We asked a lot more specific stuff. We talked to potential outcomes. What are Canadian businesses looking for? And we found that of 12 possible outcomes, even small businesses were able to identify a source of business benefit in IoT. Medium businesses had more reasons to pursue an IoT strategy, and large enterprises, not surprisingly, were the most bullish on IoT benefits. There's still a bit of a gap between what people think IoT can do and the actual rollout of activities. As a matter of fact, the data is not represented here today or in these numbers, but activity is certainly less than awareness would suggest. So, what are people thinking about in terms of what you can do with IoT? We asked again several questions, probably 12, I think. And the top level responses were improve processes, increase productivity, better manage risk, increase revenue, and offer new products and services. Mid-market, advanced IT group that's starting to think about issues around IoT commitments, I think in a more sophisticated way. So they're looking at problems with strategic vision, measuring ROI, or building the executive sponsorship you need. So just a little overview of how you can start to think about IoT adoption. Clearly there are lots of different interests and different perspectives that you can approach it from. The last slide that I'd like to share is on IoT security issues. This is something that was identified in our work, but also in other forums as a critical issue and barrier to adoption of IoT. And here, just at a very top level, we looked at 12 different issues. Thank you, Fode. He helped us a little bit with them, development of these questions. What we found as the top level issues and concerns were for people were, first of all, the ability to develop a threat model that is appropriate to IoT, because IoT is different than traditional IT implementations. The second issue was an inability to develop the appropriate organizational security or risk assessment. Okay, so they're kind of related, I think, in a way. And then the final issue, top-level issue, was the ability of internal staff or vendor organizations to deliver secure code for IoT.